Good morning, good day, good afternoon. Whatever time you're watching this, thanks for watching Common Sense Fishing. And those of you joining me live tonight, welcome. So I've got a great live stream for you guys tonight. We've got some tackle out. We're going to go through like what I've been using, what I've got in my bags. We're going to talk about some recent trips out, what have been kind of the standard patterns that have been working and go from there. We'll add on to it. So smash that like. And yeah, I'm super excited to be back on. Long time no see, brother. Make sure you guys stick around too if you get a chance to come check back in because I didn't want to put it in the title, but tonight I'm going to do another live stream giveaway. So Harry's got a card, so I've only got two of them. But yep, thanks for joining me tonight. Keeping it real. Good to see you on. So, fall transitions on. Great, great time of year. Bites should be pretty much on fire. It'll just get slower and slower as it gets colder and colder, and we get more into the winter. And it'll have its ups and downs. There'll be some really great times when the water gets really cold, and you can start using blade baits, jerk baits, and you can use some of that right now. But we'll get into those tips and we'll talk about that. Uh, I'm finding that there are schools of fish that you can find. You got to go drive around and find them, and you can find some decent sized schools of fish that you can throw a spoon down, a jigging spoon, a flutter spoon, an LV 500. Whatever you want down into the school basically, and just yo-yo it and catch them. You can turn the school on and off, kind of follow them around or hover in an area. Usually, what they'll do is they'll pin bait fish. This time of year, the bass are going to start pinning and kind of like herding the bait fish into little cuts, coves, and creek channels and things like that that they can pin them in and feed on them for pretty much a few months. Then stuff will scatter, schools will become smaller. That's when they start heading out to like main lake points for the wintertime stuff. Um, that's what your traditional fish, not all of them, obviously. You have fish to do all kinds of stuff. That's why you can use the float and fly, the jerk bait in the wintertime. You use the blade bait, one of the great lures there. So we'll talk about like the differences, when to use one for the fall, when to use one for the winter, like why the theory is why you should use one versus the other. So we're going to talk about all of that. And I'll try to cover as much as I can tonight in a cohesive, reasonable manner so that we can really dive into these tips and information and actually get to the meat of it and understand kind of what really is the important factor, right? Or at least what most pros and people say about it. Sometimes I find I just do my own thing and I find weird stuff works, and sometimes, most of the time, they're right. When they say that it's this way or that way. So we'll get into all that good stuff. So thanks for joining tonight. Smash that like button. We're going to get into some of the fall transition tips. So first, we're going to talk about fall because that's what time it is. It's not obviously winter yet. So you'll notice if you're looking at your fish finder, depending on what body of water you're fishing and where you're at, that the water's probably still in the 60-degree range right now. Maybe warmer, maybe a little colder, depending on what state you're in, all that good stuff. So California, Central Valley, McClure, Don Pedro-ish like type lakes, Eastman, probably going to be seeing water in the mid 60s to lower 60s. Some of these lakes are going to be in the upper 50s as well, especially ones the farther north you get, like Clear Lake, Shasta. They're probably colder than that even. So I don't know, haven't been there, so I couldn't tell you. But we're not at those really cold temperatures yet. And there's going to be baits that you're going to want to use in the extremely cold temperatures versus baits that you're going to want to use when the water's a little bit more warm. And the reason for that is that when the water's a little more warm and this time of year, the fish's metabolism's still high, they're moving around, they're feeding, they're kind of gorging up for the winter, they're trying to get fat, they're eating, they're still active, right? Well, in the wintertime, they don't like to exert as much energy. They'll just kind of they'll kind of almost not hibernate, but they'll kind of just hunker down right on the bottom and just sit there. And they don't move a lot, and they'll stay near bait, and they'll come up to feed, and then they'll go down. They have these windows usually in the winter where you can actually catch some pretty nice active feeding bass, for a short period, a couple of times throughout the day. But then most of the time they're kind of just down there chilling, right? And that's why in the wintertime, things that will trigger them to bite, like a blade bait or something that's reactive and that is a really quick popping, like a jig bite or an LV 500 or a blade bait, right? That's why they can turn those lethargic fish on, because it creates a feed, like fight or flight, right? It's a initial instinct, right? They either eat it or they don't. And so when it's right there in their face and it's darting around, you can get them with that quick darting motions, right? So that's not that time yet. That's the winter. Or the other thing is, so I guess we're going to talk about winter a little bit too right now. So really slow. So when I mean slow, I'm talking your lure. If it's this jig right here, right, and this is the bottom, I'm talking when you're using your lure, right? And most guys thinking slow means and then right and then no, I'm talking when you're fishing in the wintertime and you're using a bottom bouncer, it needs to be like that type of speed. Like that's slow. That's how we fish in the winter and smack them. So it's going to be one or the other. Right now, though, that's not the case. So if you're fishing, like you got to fish slow depending on what you're doing. But there's a lot of fish that are suspended. There's still fish that are top water, even. There's fish that are active that you can use crankbaits on right now, jerk baits, top water, sorry, all kinds of different, reactive baits right now, because there's still fish that are moving around. And there's also fish that kind of like stop and go, and they're down there towards the bottom. Those are perfect jig fish, right? That's one of the best lures you can use to get them, because they're not necessarily, it's not super cold. They're not stuck to the bottom. You don't have to super go too slow, but they'll kind of move and then stop, right? And when they do that, you can take those jigs and just drag them real slow. But also, what they'll do is right now the crawdads basically come out as the water level raises. The water's still warm. They'll come out. I forget what time it's. I think it's usually in November. Come out for like fall into the winter before they'll kind of go back and do their thing. And I really would need to look back up on the crawdad lifespan, because I'm such a burnout. I always forget when they're modeled, like when the colors or what. You can search that up so to help you like kind of key in. I usually use more natural stuff. So depending on the water that I'm fishing, I go off of water clarity instead of trying to like match what's down there. Because a lot of times you'll see the crawdads, you see the fish that are spitting up this orange or red. So guys will do that, but I'll be using like a green like this, and I'll still tear them up. So that's what I'm using right now. I'm using this. So it's not like I'm trying to mimic a actual, red and purple crawdad. There are a lot of green and brown ones too. So I really try to match my color based on the water clarity. So if the water clarity is, pretty clear, I'm usually using like a green or a brown, a more realistic color matching the bottom. And then if the colors, if the water's dark, then I'm probably pulling out the red, the blacks, the purples, the blues, the darker colors. So that's kind of how I pick my coloring on my jigs and my trailers. Instead of trying to necessarily match the color of the bait that's in there, I'm more concerned with the water clarity and like how I would normally fish a rubber. Like if I wasn't trying to imitate a craw, you'd be using X color, right, or Y. One of my favorites is the um, margarita mutilator. If you're not using, a jig or something like that, and you're throwing a drop shot. So this time of year, that's just one of my go-tos right there. But anyways, hey, good evening. Good to see you on Gerbs. Ronald Roquemore. Smash that like button. Sorry, I'm a little bit rusty because it's my first time being on in a while, guys. As you can see, we got the room back, so you guys didn't get to see what it looked like. It was just oh destroyed. A lot of stuff going on in there. So we finally have like the room back to be able to do these live streams. Work slowed down a little bit. I'm still pretty busy, and I do the MMA as well. Once or twice a week, so that I can kind of compete with it. But I'm finally getting back into the groove of things. um, you know, Excited to be doing the live streams. And I've also got a couple of cool videos that are going to be hitting for you guys. Members only are going to get their early access to all of them. And what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to create members only posts as well that will contain specific and precise instructions on exactly where and what I'm catching fish on. So for those of you who are local, for those of you who are, even if you're not and you're in another area, you got a honest, on the dot to that day's weather, uh, kind of like a personal fishing report on what the fish are biting and how the fish are biting. And that will never go to anyone else other than you guys. So, little special things I'm trying to think of that I'm going to do for you guys. So, I'm going to create like same day posts. When I go on a trip, right? And even if you're in a different state, you can look and see, okay, when I went on that trip, it was this date, and the weather in that state or this area was that. Or I can even include that information. Thank you, guys. I can even include like weather, temps, all that good stuff. That way you guys can look and see in these circumstances, this water condition, targeting fish this way. So hopefully it'll help you in other areas as well. And those of you guys who are local, maybe tournament fishing, you kind of get a little bit of a, inside track on what's going on in the local lakes here. So it'll go straight to you without waiting, because sometimes I'll go on a fishing trip and I won't post a video for a week or two. Or I'll also go with somebody who's going to be fishing in a tournament, and out of respect to that person, I won't post that video until after their tournament. And so, if I think one of the ways to reward members is we're going to do also immediate fishing reports. As soon as I get back, we'll do a post. We'll let you guys know when, where, and what. So we're going to be doing some changes. I'm excited to be back. So sorry, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I was a little burned out here. First live stream back, but that's all right. So, anyways, we're going to talk about tonight fall, winter transition lures. We're going to talk about what lures work best, what lures I'll throw. We're going to talk about some jigs. We're going to talk about my tackle, some of the stuff that I use. Obviously, you guys know that I'm going to be preaching about a Mega Bass 110 jerk bait, most likely coming up soon. You know that I'm going to be talking about crankbaits. So, medium diving, 10, 12 feet. Oh, it's perfect right now. Basically, LV 500s should be turning on very soon. Jigging spoons and LV 500s are catching fish. I'm catching them. If you find the right school, you can tear them up on them. I just haven't really ran into them just yet like that. I've caught a few here and a few there, and then I'll move on. But those basically are going to be some really hot lures. And I want to start with those really quick, and I want to talk about when should you use a LV 500, when should you use a rattle trap, or let's say a mega bass or something like that, but a rattle trap specifically. So we're going to compare 3 or 4 different lures. We're going to compare a LV 500, a cotton cordell, let's say rattle trap, and then a blade bait, and say a flutter and jigging spoon, right? They're basically very similar lures that are meant to mimic a dying fish, right? A dying minnow. And the differences between a blade bait, let's put them in 2 categories, okay? You have silent and you have noise. So you have a blade bait, a jigging spoon, and a flutter spoon, all imitate a dying, but with no noise. There's no rattles in those. Now you go to an LV 500 and a cotton cordell rattle trap, They both have rattles. Difference is the LV500 will fall fast, more like your jigging spoon, and the cotton cortail rattle trap will fall a bit slower, more like your flutter spoon. And so, depending on if the fish are not turned on, are in a tight group, down towards the bottom, I'll use a jigging spoon. If the fish are moving, if the fish are feeding, if they're suspended a lot more, then I'd use a flutter spoon, right? Now, if you're going to go with a rattle, right, you're going to make noise, then I'm going to follow those same principles. If the fish are more tight, more towards the bottom, even if they're not on the bottom, but they're more towards the bottom, I'm going to use an LV500. If the fish are suspended and moving, I'm going to want to use like a cotton cordell rattle trap because it's going to have a slower rate of fall and more of a flutter so that those feeding, moving fish have a time to hit it. And I want to follow that down closely, monitoring my line. Because when I feel that tick, even with slack line, you'll feel it. Then you have to be quick because with a hard bait like a LV500 or a rattle trap, the fish are going to usually just hold it and just keep it forever. They're going to hit it, realize it's hard or something's not quite right within a few seconds and spit it out. Some of them will hold it or they'll hook themselves on the bite, but you have to be quick with a hard lure. Just remember that soft plastic, sometimes the fish swallow the dang thing if you're not paying attention, right? So, but rarely do fish, uh, you know, actually just hold on to a hard bait that I'm aware of, because usually if they seem to have and then they pop off, you had the fish hooked and it got away, right? But anyways, so why would you want to use the silent versus the rattle? Okay, so the separation between the two is winter and fall, basically. And the idea is, this is the idea behind it, is that in the fall the bait fish schools are bigger, right? And they're more louder because they're moving around a little bit more, and they're bigger schools, so those fish are making lots of noise, touching and rubbing against each other in that school underwater to the fish. So a rattle is supposed to mimic a larger school of fish. So a non-rattle obviously would mimic a singular, a dying fish, and usually a little bit larger, or just, hey, this is one target moving down and it's not got a lot of noise, so it doesn't seem out of place. So, for example, in the wintertime, when the schools are whittled down, there's not as much fish. And then, even if there is large schools, they're not darting and moving around as much, so they don't make as much noise. Hence, a more stealthier approach is more realistic and natural to the bass. So that's pretty much supposed to be the thinking behind it. And I found it pretty much does hold true. You can still catch bass on a blade bait, a jigging spoon, or a flutter spoon during the fall transition, right? The same thing within the winter time. You may catch them with the rattle trap and the LV500, because the idea is, like I said, the rattles are supposed to mimic a school, while the obvious no rattles is more silent and stealthy, right? And the idea behind that is the school's larger in the fall, not as much so during the winter, and they don't move around as much, so they're more lethargic, don't make as much noise. Now, like I said, I've caught them both ways. So, but what I do notice is usually, right, almost all the time, depending on where the fish are situated, when you find a school of them, or if they're tighter to the bottom, I'm using something heavier and quicker. If they're moving around and more suspended, I'm using something that flutters and gives them more time to sit and come at it. And it really makes a difference. This is, if you don't throw those types of lures, I strongly suggest you get out there, try throwing the LV500s, try throwing a rattle trap, try throwing a jigging spoon, and try throwing a flutter spoon. Those four lures right there. And what you want to do is break them down into those according to the situation. Now, another thing is, I've also been told by a lot of good bass fishermen, and I've read about it, that during the wind, right? So during fall or winter, during the wind, a rattle trap can be exceptionally good, or sorry, an LV 500, basically something really loud and obnoxious, and you can rip it and pop it, yo-yo it. You can do all kinds of stuff. But jerk baits, deep diving jerk baits, can work really good in the wind. Spinner baits, if you have a big body jerk bait, spinner baits work great in the wind. A rigs, and this time of year, you got to think it may be cold to you outside, but if that water temperature is not cold, those fish aren't in that mood yet. 100%. Yes, they're slowing down. So we're going to talk about some fishing. Yes, definitely slowing down as far as the bait movement, or very fast. They seem to want it one of two ways. They don't really like it moderate right now. So in the local lakes where I'm fishing in the Central Valley, if you're hopping and moving your bait at a moderate pace, or slightly, let's say, faster than slow, they're not going to touch it usually, or you're not going to get as many fish. However, if you just reel your bait in, you'll catch a few fish just simply casting out, letting it sink. And you'll get fish that hit it on the fall as it's sinking fast. You'll get fish that hit your bait on the fall, or as soon as you go to lift, they're already there because they're suspended. Your bait fell through them. They went down and they picked it up. A lot of fish you're going to get, in this time frame right now should be like that. Or you could reel it in. So they like kind of some fast, erratic stuff. Had some fish on some jerk bait, stuff like that. I've had some LV 500 fish lately. So they still definitely are hitting the fast and erratic stuff. But the number one killer right now, the number one killer has been, I'll show you guys here, has been a jig, hands down. Just throwing this jig right here. Shout out to Jig Sucking Lips. And we're killing them with that jig, man. We're going to town. We're casting it up in a foot or two of water, and we're slow dragging it down. And if you haven't seen my whiteboard video, go check one of my older whiteboard videos out that teach you about how to pull a lure downhill correctly, because it really is a skill. It actually takes a bit to get it down, because you might think you're on the bottom, but your lure is just swimming. And then you're working it along and you're swimming it, and you think that it's stopped when it's not. So, and there, especially when you start fishing deeper, and then this time of year. So it's real important to know how to bring your lure down. And then also, even if you do know how to like watch it and do this and that, if you're not working it correctly, you'll have your lure sailing through the water and then doing these big old hops. So if you do it correctly, even if there's a big drop off, if you drag your lure correctly, it'll just literally almost fall straight down. Boom. But if you're hopping it and then drag a little hop, and you happen to hop off a big boulder or precipice and you hop, it's almost like the way astronauts are on the moon, right? It's going to go, and then it's going to fall way out here. So you passed all the bass that would like be sitting right at the base of that big drop off, all those bass that should be stacked at that base. You just went right over their heads. They're not going to go chase that. So when you're bringing your lure downhill, you have to do it extremely slow and methodical, especially if there's drop offs and big boulders. You want to drag it, and then when you feel it lose contact, you have to open the bell, click the button, let line out, move your pole towards it, whatever you have to do to make sure you're giving that lure the ability. As soon as you pulled it off and it starts going in, you want it to immediately have no resistance so that it falls right away. And then you're dragging it most of the time. You're dragging it, maybe a small little hop here and there because of your movements. But in general, you're just dragging it. And then when you hit here, it just keeps going down, and you're not boom, boom. That's what's happening. A little bit too active with your rod tip. So the jig has just been smashing it. And obviously, you guys should know where to fish a jig, right? In the rocks or in the laydown structure, wood, big boulders, rocks, drop offs, crags, crevices, right? And to be honest, even plain just regular shoreline's been holding a lot of fish because they're still moving and migrating right now, and the water temperature is still at a warm enough temperature that everything's still moving and doing its thing down there. You got to think that the fish spawn at 63, and there's also sometimes thought of what's called a false spawn, where fish will go up and they'll even make beds and they'll sit and they'll lay in the shallows for a week or two until they realize that, oh, wait a minute, we're not really spawning, because the light and the time and everything is matched exactly to spring. So the hours of daylight and the water temperature are perfect. So the fish gets freaking confused, like, what? It's been a year already? Hey, good evening, Cody. Nice to see you on tonight. So, for those of you who are on, I'm going to be having a special little surprise giveaway a little bit later on. So appreciate you guys jumping on. First time back in a bit. So, but I've got some great tips for the mother lode lakes, the fall to spring transition, or sorry, the fall to winter transition. Man, it's been a long one. My back's killing me. Been out fishing all day. Been working too most of the week. Doing a lot of fishing too. When I can get out there, I'm going out there in the back of other people's boats. So my boat's still in the shop. Ain't fixed yet, but it should be soon, hopefully. We're just the parts on back order, so it's not the guy's fault. It's just, can't get the part yet. So as soon as it comes in, he'll have it fixed. Let me know. And I'll be excited to. I'm going to get out there and tournament fish next year just for fun. I mean, there's a lot of guys way better than me, so I'm open and honest, right? So I tell you guys, this is what I'm catching, this is how I'm doing it on. I never put it out there like I'm some special guy that's better than anybody else or that. Fishing sometimes luck too, but it's a lot of skill, and then sometimes it's just some luck. And but I love enjoying watching other people share, the joy of catching fish and watching them just get excited, when they're catching fish. And I love helping people catch fish. And I just love fishing. So the community and stuff like that. So I genuinely want to try to help people become better anglers, but at the same time I want to become better. So this is also like a journey documented. I can go back and watch my videos, see what I went wrong, where I'm losing fish at, and also critique my own videos, like, what am I doing wrong, how can I make this better? So for example, with the live streams, I'm going to try to involve more props. I got more stuff here, all kinds of stuff that we can talk about. We got goodies, I got my bags, I got all my lures that we're using, so we can go over all the different stuff that I use. You guys all know my favorite crankbait, right? I have thousands of them now, almost, right? No, not really, but I have a bunch of them. I just, they're my favorite. Obviously, using the robo worms when I'm drop shotting, that's an empty pack. But yeah, one of my favorite colors, right? Especially with the little hot tip. And if you look at the pack, right, do you notice anything about it? It kind of looks oily. So I open them up, I spray them up with Bang, and they just marinate. Hey, Kamze, nice to see you on tonight. This one's Morning Dawn, though. So anyways, we're going to be having more of the fishing stuff here, breaking down, like, what I'm using, what gear, what line. There's just so much tips and tricks and information to share and give. It's like hard to, just hone in and stay focused on one subject. Like, for example, what was so important in this last week's success is the fact that using the right equipment. So I'm using 15-pound, really high, quality fluorocarbon, so that I'm very sensitive. I can watch my line. I have great castability. I can cast really far. And get frayed or messed up when I'm in the rocks, I just retie, right? But I can feel everything as if I'm using braid. But in these lakes, I don't use braid. I don't like it the way its action interacts with. I don't like having a uni to uni or a blood knot. I don't like tying two lines together if I can avoid it. The least amount of weak points between me and the fish, the better. Bad enough, you got to tie the line to the lure, right? So you have a knot right there. And I don't want to put any more in the situation if I can avoid it. I do have a couple of rods that I'll string up like that to save some money and to have some other options. But when I'm jig fishing, I ain't playing around. So I like to use a medium heavy, something like this is a 7.6. So a 7.3, 7.6 when I'm lake fishing. I'm not pitching. I'm not trying to underhand. I'm not trying to fish docks. I'm not jig fishing like this. I'm actually bombing this from sitting in 40, 50 feet of water into 1 or 2 feet of water and bringing my lure down. And then when you get dialed in on a particular shelf or when you get bit multiple times, then you can start honing in on what areas and even get more efficient. But this long, powerful rod allows me to have some great hook sets. Even if my rod tip's a little high, I can snap it and I have a lot of force backbone and gives me more leverage. So it's a great setup. And also one of the other things is when we're hooking these fish and bringing them in, they're coming up to jump and shaking their heads with these big old half-ounce jigs. So you got to have a high-speed reel, keep pressure on them, keep them loaded up. You can't let the fish get ahead of you. So a high speed, 7-to-1 or 8, 7-2-1. What is this one? I think this one's a 7, an 8. What is it? An 8-2-1 or an 8-1 is what Jay was fishing with. And I believe this is, it's kind of rubbed off, but I think this is in the 7. It's a high speed. So basically, when I hook into these fish, and if I hook in, right, and my rod tip's high, when I go to drop to fight them, or even just a little bit, I just a couple of cranks and I'm caught. I'm constant pressure. There's no need to, like, when you hook a fish, fight them like this, and then slowly kind of get into a comfortable position. No, it's boom, and then immediately you're fighting and controlling your fish in a comfortable position. If let's say is if your rod tip's low, that's the best way to fish anyways. But sometimes when you're fishing these mother lode lakes, well, that's some complicated stuff. But professionals will teach you keep your rod tips pointed at the water, at the stuff, so that when you get your bite, you can have a good hook set and good control on it, which is technically the right answer, right? But when you're pulling your bait down these mother lode lakes and you got some steep rocky stuff out and it can drop 10, 15, even 20 feet, you need to be able to watch your line. You need to be able to know, and then you got to have some room, right? So if you pull your pole like a certain way and then you notice and then you stop and then you go to let and your line just keeps falling and falling and falling, you have some room to swing your pole and then hit your button, let some line out, open your spool, whatever you're doing, right? Well, if you cast out, you have your rod tip low and you do a little hop and you pull your bait off of a big boulder and it falls, well, because your rod tip, you don't have a lot of play, your bait's going to fall out and then swing away like this. And then by the time you realize it and do something about it, you're missing a lot of that prime fishing area. So it's a pick your poison thing. So on comfort, I choose to fish with my rod tip kind of at a moderately mid level, and I raise it slightly, not too high, so that when I do get bit, I have a lot of sensitivity, so I can feel the moment that fish picks up my bait. I don't feel a tick, right? What I feel is if I'm dragging or moving, my bait feels a certain, and then all of a sudden it just gets a little heavier, right? That's it. And then boom, I'm on them because I'm not letting them go tick, because the second they do that, if my rod tip's high, doesn't matter. I've got to then load. But the second I'm feeling the tick, the fish is pulling away. And if that fish realizes sometimes the moment of the tick is actually the moment the fish is spitting it out. So what'll happen is the fish come in, let's say you cast out and your lure falls down and you're not even ready yet. Fish can pick up your bait, right? And you reel in, and then you think you're about to jig for the first time, and you go to lift up, but it feels a little heavy, and then you feel tick. Well, that fish had your jig. You lifted up on the fish. The fish feels the jig getting pulled out and the fish spits it out, you actually will feel like a tick as the fish opens its mouth and like throws your lure out. You'll feel that. And then nothing, whiff, gone. So what's happening is you're not actually getting bit the moment sometimes you feel that tick. Sometimes, a lot of times, you actually got bit. You didn't even feel it. If your rod, even if your rod's super $500 rod, I'm telling you, there are times when that fish is just going to come up and pull that lure in its mouth so smooth that all you feel is that if you go to lift your jig up and you lift it and you've got this normal feel, it'll feel simply like there's a piece of grass on it or that there's something slightly heavier. Like, I mean, barely. And you'll feel like, what? And it'll move too. It'll come in with you, but it'll be heavier. And then the second you feel that tick, too late. You already missed it a lot of the times. So, that's why I'll tend to fish a certain way. And the second I feel that weight, I'm hammering on them. And that's why this longer rod comes into play too. Also, like I said, I like to make long casts, and I fish it like a spinning rod. As far as I make the cast like this, I don't take it and do no fancy underhand. I don't pitch it because literally I'll cover such a huge area. So I'll bomb this sucker 60, 70-yard cast like a Hail Mary football. Whoo, send my jig flying. You know what I mean? And I catch plenty of fish. And even when the big ones bite, I usually get them. So I'll stick them and I'll get them. I don't have problems with it because a lot of different factors. The rod's so stiff, right? So if I cast far, I don't have to worry about leverage. I set the hook. I get a bite on a 60-yard or 50-yard cast, I'm still smacking that fish the second it picks up. And because of the fact that I'm using fluoro, I've got such a long rod and it's a nice expensive one. It's not too expensive, but it's a decent one. The Carbon Light, 100 and something bucks. So it's pretty decent with its sensitivity. It does the trick for me in a lot of different types of lures and situations. I use that rod for throwing an LV 500. I'll throw a jig. I'll throw a jerk bait, a heavy jerk bait. I'll throw bigger lures on it. It's medium heavy 7.6. And also, one of my little secrets that I've told you guys before, but we're going to share with you guys again. Hey, Ray, nice to see you on. Is remember, if you're fishing an area that's primarily rock or dirt and rock and craggle, snaggle, whatever, but there's not a ton of trees and grass and weeds, it's super important, in my opinion, that you use a jig that has no weed guard, so that it's basically like a giant Ned rig. So when these bass pick that thing up, it's like a skirted Ned rig with a football head, right? So when these bass pick it up, you just it's a real quick and easy hook set. And even on a big old pig, it don't take a lot of force to drive that hook in because there's no weed guard, there's no resistance. It's just pure hook right in. And these things that they use some really sharp hooks. You just want to remember, after catching 10, 20 fish, it doesn't hurt to have a hook sharpener on the boat, because you want to make sure your points stay nice and sharp, especially if you've been in some rocks or caught a lot of number of fish, because you don't want to lose your big ones. Because I did have one today that could have possibly been a double digit. I don't know, but I know that basically it was in like 3 or 4 feet of water. Like, a lot of our 2+ pound spots came out of like within maybe 5 feet of water, something like that. Maybe 8 at the most, but like right within a few feet of shore. So who knows? Just not too deep. And what happened was it just stopped. Boom. I'm like, what? And I lifted, and it's like I'm snagged. But then the snag starts moving, right? So I lift up, and it's just like, boom. And I'm like, what? And I start pulling harder and harder, and the thing starts lifting up like this and coming in towards me, and then goes boom, boom, right? And starts loading. So I set the hook on it nice and good, and it just goes, whoa, and then popped right off, right at the boat. I was like, and when I set the hook on it, when I went whack. It felt like like stuck in a giant log, and then it just went boom, straight down, poof, popped off. And I'm like, I look over at Jay. Jay looks over at me. I'm like, I don't know how big it could have been a catfish. Don't know what it was, but I believe that was one of those, 5 to 10 pound largies, big old fatty. Don't know what it was. And I believe just in the weight, the solidness of what I felt when I set the hook had to be probably 7 or 8. Because I've caught so many fish over 6, 7 pounds. And I know when it feels when you like hook into something that's over, that's close to 10 pounds. It just feels like you hooked into a rock or a log. It feels like you're snagged when you first set the hook. Like if you've ever thought you had a bite and you set the hook and it's just a rock, whap, and then you're like, and it's just, snag. That's what a big ass fish feels like. But then when you go, it goes, and the fight's on. Your drag starts peeling or whatever have you, right? So yeah, I sucked. And it wasn't even drag because it didn't when it ran, it just popped like really easy. Like I didn't like the way that direction that it went, the hook was maybe facing that way, or I don't think I had the hook in it good. Maybe it wasn't even like had the hook and it just popped out its mouth. It was massive. It felt really huge. And then that's towards the end of the day. And at the beginning of the day, Jay dumps like a 3 to, I don't know, maybe no more than 5 or 4 or 5, but a 3 plus easy. Largemouth right at the boat, air jaws. It goes, woo, comes out like about this big looking, shakes, woo, 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 and just big old bucket mouth, for clear bass right now. We're like, oh, you know, and it just does a flip, lure, the jig goes flying. Like, it sucks. I got it all on video too. It's awesome. I got him. We both catch fish while we're eating apples. We both catch fish while we're eating sandwiches. He gets one when he's eating a ham and cheese sandwich, and he sets the hook and falls over. And he was eating a sandwich while he had a bite with one hand. He sets the hook, and then he takes a big bite of the sandwich and holds it in his mouth, and then starts fishing. But when he did that, he fell, and he just was fighting like this, and I've got it all on video, and I'm laughing, and then he starts choking on his sandwich and laughing too. It's funny. We had a good time, man. We tore him up. Caught a lot of fish. That's all I could say. We caught, I'd say, about probably easy 40 something, if not 50 to 60 fish. I wouldn't put our numbers over maybe 55, 60. It was hard to count. I personally believe we each caught over 20 for sure, and as much as almost 30 each. We were whacking them left and right. Sorry, folks. Wife brought in some skitty. Smash that like button if you guys get a chance. Leave a comment. We're going to go ahead and give away one of these cards here. Everybody should have got their giveaway stuff except Harry Madera. I'm going to mail you yours. I sold 2 of the collectible things on my eBay store, and so I got to go to the post office tomorrow. So I'll mail it out. Honestly, I just been burned out, so I just got to go get an envelope and a stamp and mail it out. Just been busy or honest lazy in some instances because I'm going fishing or something, right? I mean, I haven't really been lazy. I've been doing something every day. It's either been work or fishing and stuff like that. So now I kind of have some time to chill. So I'm gonna take care of business. I gotta go to the post office, all that. So Harry, your card's gonna be going out tomorrow. So tonight's winner will also be going out tomorrow. So you'll get your stuff quick. So I'll have one saved for next week. We'll probably do another one. So for tonight, we're going to go ahead and give away one of these, just random for you guys. So make sure you comment in the comment section giveaway like normal. We'll hit the wheel of names, and we'll get this bad boy over with, and we'll wrap it up, talk about some more tips and tricks. And I'm going to focus on trying to make sure that I'm a little more precise with my delivery, and then with my subjects, cover one subject probably pretty thoroughly. Like, for example, it's really can be intricate, but it's not simple once you understand it or get the principles right, because there's the supposed rules of fishing, and fish break them all the time, so it's whatever. But they give you a baseline, like somewhere to start when you go out. Like, what should I throw? Well, I've read in the Bassmaster that, I mean, that kind of stuff, right? Doesn't mean that it's 100%. um, like, using dark colors at night or in dirty water, and using light colors, in clean water. So, for example, you probably want to throw, if you're in some really clear water and the fish can, you might not want to use like oranges and reds and blacks and purples and stuff. You might want to use some greens and browns, or some really light pinks and blues, some white, whatever, silver, match the hatch, realistic type stuff. So, those kind of tips and tricks, you build up on those basic building blocks, and then you at least have somewhere to go from there, right? And so, what I was talking about earlier was, for example, um, the difference between when you want to use a rattle versus something silent, like say a LV500 and a rattle trap. Those are supposed to imitate a school of bait fish, hence the rattles, all the fish making noise together. While a flutter spoon or a jigging spoon is one singular fish dying. It's not a bunch of noise. It's just the sight. It's visual. The bass sees the flash of the minnow slowly falling or quickly falling. And it kind of went into, I like to use something that drops faster when the bass are more lower, even if they're suspended, but they're closer to the bottom. I want to use something that drops faster and that I can hop right off the bottom, and then it drops quick. Now, if the bass are kind of mid level, say 60 feet deep, and the bass are from 30 all the way down to like 58, almost 60, it's this big school, that's a flutter spoon, right? Or in LV 500 for when they're on the bottom, rattle trap for when they're suspended. Same thing. Flutter spoon for suspended, jigging spoon for closer to the bottom, right? And it plays into the ideas of in the fall that there's a school, while in the winter the school are less. They don't move around as much. They're quieter, right? So um, that's kind of little stuff, right, that you build upon, and you go out there. And so let's say it's really cold out. It's in the winter. What should you throw? Maybe a blade bait, maybe a jigging spoon, right? Maybe a flutter spoon. I don't know. Do you have a fish finder? Can you see? If not, you're on shore. Start with a few different things. If those don't work, then you go to the drop shot. Like I was also saying earlier, that in the fall, fish seem to be everywhere. And what they do is they start to congregate and herd and pin the bait fish into little cuts and coves off of the main lake, or even into some of the creeks, depending. And they'll hold the bait there and feed for a few months. And as the temperatures get really cold, one of the other patterns the fish will do is they'll start to pull out to the main lake points, sit out 40, 50, 60 feet deep sometimes. They'll move up for a few hours into the shallows, and then they'll move down. So, and they'll also be just random fish that will be shallow, using rocks to generate heat from the sun as soon as the sun's up. Float and fly fish is a perfect example of, it can be extremely cold outside. You can put a float and fly and pull 3-pound spotted bass that are in 12 feet of water. Well, most guys might be dingling their drop shot in 60 feet of water and catching the same or smaller fish. You can get some really big ones too, doing like a float and fly. So fish they're all over the board, right? But during the fall, right now particularly, they're spread out much more. So they're on the bottom. There's some that are swimming around. There's some that are just, doing all kinds of different things right now. So this is a mixed bag. You can go out there and catch them on a lot of different stuff. You can throw A rigs also during different times of the day. So when you first get out on the water, you get there early light, maybe some top water, maybe an A rig or a jerk bait, maybe some speed cranking or cranking along the rocks and parallel to stuff. If you're seeing them down on the bottom and they're active, maybe an LV 500, stuff like that. As the day warms up and gets clear, maybe you have to move to something like dragging a jig, throwing a drop shot, or looking for the other ones and going, depending on what time of year it is. And so like as the day progresses and things warm up, maybe the fish will start pulling up into rocks because now that their sun's been up for a few hours, the water temperature right there is actually warmer than it is down there because those sun is heating the rocks up and they're heating the water up or something, let's say. So or the bait too, right? All of it goes into it. So right now during the fall, there's so much going on that you can catch them a lot of different ways. So pick your poison. Now my particular way, like I said recently, has been the jig. So I've been at Lake McClure, just destroying them on the jig. Went to Eastman, fished for a few hours, walked around, took the dog out there, got one on a drop shot. It was real tough. Lake Eastman's brutal. There was a ton of algae bloom, and I didn't have a boat, so I hadn't have the luxury of being able to fish deep. All of the Eastman's a dry puddle right now, so the shoreline it goes out really far before there's any real drop offs. So you're forced to fish in 5, 6 feet of water for most of it if you're fishing from shore. Deepest you can get into in most parts is maybe 15, 20 feet if you can cast really long and you're in certain areas. So it's a bit tough. It was frustrating, but I had fun. Took my dog out there. We got some fish. So there's going to be a lot of videos and contents coming to you guys here in the next week or two. Most of it's going to be at McClure. There's going to be some fun trips in the rain. We got just brutalized, soaked, miserable. There's a couple of trips, and some nice weather, but a lot of fish caught. Nothing over really like 3 pounds or so recently. A couple of them in the two and some change range, almost 3 pounds. We had one, I think, that was 3 pounds actually when I fished with Tim. I think he might have got one. But we did lose in the last 3 trips. We lost 2 fish that were monsters. So yeah, 3, and then we lost a decent. Jay lost a decent, like I said, 3 to 4 or 5 max, but I lost two good ones. So one of them I believe is on video. I don't know what you can see of it. So it's been a fun trip. As far as the fight, like I don't know what I actually captured because a lot of the stuff I was recording this time. So I got a lot of hook sets. I got a lot of cast to catch stuff. We got some doubles, a lot of fun stuff. So hopefully this next couple you guys will enjoy, especially the way I edit it. I'm going to try to be throwing in much more regular footage, some conversation. I appreciate it, Doug. So, hey, Bijan, that guy's got the best jigs. Make sure you guys check out Jig Sucking Lips, Yupang Vang, Bijan, out there just killing them. Now, I'd have to say that in the last 3 trips, Bijan, Yupang Vang, the Jig Sucking Lips, I've probably put in we probably put in over 120 fish or more. I mean, just today alone, we probably caught almost 50 or somewhere around that, maybe a little more than 50, between 20 and 30 fish each. It was just a madhouse. And the other day, we probably caught around 35, 45 in the rain in like 5 hours with the jigs. And then the day before that, we got some on the drop shot. I was struggling with the jig because I was just using the wrong gear. I had to drop a pole. I was using a 7'2" medium action that I think it had 12-pound test, but it may have had some issue. The line I think was old from getting a few backlashes in the past. I had snapped my line with half my spool out on a hook set. So it was frustrating. So that one got put out of commission, and it really wasn't the best. The reel on that, the speed is a 5.3 I think it's a real slow speed. So I wasn't able to keep up with a lot of the fish. So it was frustrating, but I eventually got on some good jig fish in the first video. So you'll see like 3 or 4 videos that are about to come out. I do more. I've got a couple more how to fizz a bass video coming out, showing you guys basically how to keep your fish alive. So today, some of our fish came out of 40 to 60 feet deep, and some of them came out of 2 or 3 feet deep. And we had to fizz almost all of the bass, except for like 2 of them. And that made all the difference in the world. Kept them really in good shape, not floating, not sick. Took good care of them. We got some good photos. I'm going to try to make I've got a good photo for the thumbnails of the videos, probably two of them. Like I said, we got some fun content. Me and my buddy just talking, having a good time, being two friends out on the lake. You guys will hear some of our banter. I'm going to make sure that's personally in there. Just, some, not anything personal crazy, but just me and him chatting and talking and joking. Um, I tried to purposefully get some more shots of like just fishing technique, um, the scenery, stuff like that. So hopefully you guys will like it. So there's a lot of that going to be coming up. I got to edit that tomorrow. I'm going to be editing a bunch of videos, doing a bunch of stuff. We're going to ship out the gift card. So you guys do me a favor, comment giveaway in the comment section so I can pull up the wheel of names and we can give out a Bass Pro gift shop card. By the way, D-bomb, missile D-bombs. One of my favorite crawdad trailers. Just simple and effective. It's like a Ned body. It's just a ribbed little creature bait with two thumper arms. Like a little craw bait. The colors on these that are available are really nice. You can also remove a piece. So what I usually tend to do is I'll bite off like about, I don't know what that is, a fourth or something maybe, or third. So, and then the hook will pop out right about here, and then the skirt will go to right about here. And these things just stick out, and the skirt don't mess with them, and they have a lot of action. And they're pretty tough. You can catch about 10 plus fish on them usually before you have to change your trailer. And then again, I don't know if you guys can tell, but can you see how kind of slimy or like weird the bag looks? I don't know if you can tell. Does it look pretty greasy? So I open my bags up and I take my crawfish, bang, right? And I'll marinate them, right? And I'll just spray this stuff in there. Woo! Smells like I'm going fishing. Woo! Bam! And I just let it sit. And that stuff, like that, I do that to most of my baits. Certain baits I found it there. I guess there might be some kind of, and it's not the Z-Man. I know I'm not dumb enough to mess with those ones, right, with the plastics and other stuff. But certain baits, they seem to not like it. But like probably 95% of the baits that I do, hitting them with that stuff and letting them soak, it doesn't make them like super soft, like, and ruin them. It doesn't like make them fall apart or tear them up. It doesn't like dissolve them, mess with them. It just soaks into them. And I get bit so much on one worm, I won't have to change it for a long ass time. And I kid you not, the bite will slow down. I'll pop the worm off and I'll just reach in and grab another one and cast out there, and away you go for a bunch more fish. You don't have to spray no more stuff on it. So I'm a big believer that scent can really help the difference between, you can have a fish, because we never know what's going on. With live scope, we're starting to get a much better picture on what's actually going down when we're getting bit and what the fish are doing prior to and all that, right before they bite. What are they doing? How are they checking out? Are they coming in hot and heavy? Are they following it for a long time? Do we get lucky and drop it on their head? Right? What's going on? And so I think a lot of the times you can have lure A and lure B getting dragged by, and both of those lures can have two fish just following them along, interested. And the difference between whether one gets bit or not is if it smells or tastes real. And also, if the bass does pick it up, does it just immediately spit it out or does it hold it? And I think that a lot of the time, scent can play a role in extending how long the fish hold the bait for, and making it just much more of a quality experience. When you get out on the water, you're going to have more luck. I think you get a little bit more bites. When you do get bit, they tend to hold it more. They're a little more aggressive with it. So hope that helps, because I'll bang with crawdads. It's one thing I won't really do is my robo worms will get banged with either shad or garlic or combo, where I don't really care, but I'm not really going to bang my robo worms up with crawdad. Now, on that same flip side, I'm not going to bang my creature baits that are obvious crawdad slash creature baits with a shad smell. What's the point at that point? And the fish thinks it's like a retarded, dead, like half broken shad that's squiggling around looking like a crawdad. Like, no. Like, try to match the scent to what kind of bait you're presenting, I guess is what I'm saying. Unless you're using garlic, right? I think is all around. Like, everybody loves the smell of garlic. WD-40 is what people used to use, but it's outlawed. You can't use it because oil, the fish just love that oil. So that oil with some garlic, right? That garlic oil can crack them. But I really think, I like the shad or the crawfish. And so basically, shad goes in my drop shot, my worm bag, anything imitating a minnow, and crawfish goes in my creature baits and maybe my Ned rigs and certain things like that that might imitate a crawdad or something. And that's kind of just a given with me. Everything I use is banged and soaked up. I'm just a crackhead like that, I guess. I don't use anything not banged or soaked up, or I will, and I can catch fish on them. I'm not what you call like superstitious, but if I have it, I'll use it. Let's just say that. I'm not, I don't, maybe there are times when the smell hurts it, but I don't know. I haven't really felt that. Usually it seems to have always increased it. Well, someone else is not catching as many and you are, and they're like, here, can I use that? And then they start catching it. It's like I've seen that too many times. And in the winter time, when you're fishing really slow, I think that a lot of the time our lure going right through fish. I just want nothing to do with it, or they look at it, they just don't decide to eat it. And the difference between the guy that gets bit more and the guy that doesn't could be things like your scent and the size of your bait. You got a 4 inch or 3 inch bait, and the other dude's rocking 5 or 6 inch. Well, what's the bait down there? Like 1.5 inch? Well, which one's closer? I know 3 inches is a hell of a lot bigger than the inch and a half, but it's still closer than 6 inches. So at least it's a more realistic representation of what the fish are eating. Um, so downsizing in the wintertime can also be a really key thing, and even in the fall too. Downsizing can be what separates whether you get bit or not. Now, sometimes going big or go home, right? You go to swim baits, big old worms and stuff, catch those big ones. But big fish will eat little things too. They just aren't going to chase it. Hey, Mike, nice to see you on. So you guys make sure you comment giveaway, and we're going to pull up the wheel of names for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's live stream. I'm going to, like I said, work on having much more props and things up here where we discuss the lures, the line. I'll talk about like why I use what fishing line or what lures, and then we'll have those lures and line and things here so you guys can see that. Now, one thing I want to tell you guys, big shout out to my brother from another mother, Virgil, aka Vince. He shot me this little bag here that is filled with a few swim baits. And I've got one on my rod, but I've also got these. And so thanks to him, well, there's a big whopper plopper in here. But thanks to him, I'm going to be exclusively this year doing some swim bait fishing with we got a wake bait here that he gave me here. We got a wake bait, so we're going to be throwing that. We got a bass. You guys know a wake bait bass that I'm a huge believer in using bass imitators because bass eat other bass. We got a HUD here that I've been throwing too. So we got the HUD here, 68 special. Is that the 68 or 66? I have to look at the tail. And the whopper plopper is mine. But we also have a glide here. Now I also have another glide, a Spro from him. And this is a slow sink BBZ1 Junior right here. So thanks for him donating some baits to me. This year, I hope to put some really big uh, fish in the boat using this stuff and targeting bigger fish more and doing a lot more of this versus throwing a Ned rig or a drop shot. I mean, hell, if I'm going to bottom bounce, I'm probably going to just jig. And if I'm really that down on my luck, of course I'll drop shot or Ned rig and I'll report it back to you guys. But I would rather go out this year and focus on making a goal, right? I mean, let's say New Year's resolution, right? I'm going to go out and I'm going to throw some of these big lures until I start getting some big fish on them. And we're going to use them in different locations. We're going to throw them at the Delta. We're going to throw them at Pedro, McClure. We're going to take them all over the place. And we're going to try to use the right stuff at the right place for what I have, right? I've got my soft plastic. I've got my wake baits. I've got my glides. So, and I got a couple different color schemes, right, to go with. Um, so, thanks to Virgil, I'm going to be throwing some big baits this year in the hopes of basically getting out there and just putting some cool content out there for you guys and achieving some personal goals of mine more so than anything, right? Not for clicks or anything. That should actually came second, but more so for my own personal growth as an angler and to set goals and achieve those goals and to not back down, to not back out, to not say I'm going to do something and then not do that, right? That's not what a man does. A man keeps his word. And I want to make this promise to myself for my own growth, for my own development as an angler and as a man, just to achieve my goals and dreams. And I've got 4 double digits now that have been landed and verified on scale. I've got one or two that I think are double digits, but didn't get a chance to weigh them. And most of them were in my childhood. And I have lost many. I've probably lost over 20 double digits in my life. It sucks. I've lost more than I've caught, but that's given me a lot of time to reflect on why I lost those fish, what I did to lose those fish, what I did wrong, what did I do right, like how did I get bit, what was I using, where was I fishing? Because obviously I had the opportunity. Where did I go wrong? What gear was I using? Why did it come off? And in most instances, not using big enough gear, the big enough reel, big enough pole, and then the big enough line, and getting pulled around at the Delta, or either getting my hook snapped or straightened because I tried to use too big a line, too big a gear, or be too rough and just not give the fish an inch, right? So I've lost them. And then jumping. Oh, I've lost so many monsters to the good old just jump and shake. It's frustrating as hell. And I've really tried to focus on not losing the monsters when they jump and shake, even the little guys. What can I do to improve my odds? And so I'm excited to throw those big baits. We're going to bring some new stuff to the channel here. And I appreciate everybody who joined me tonight for my first live back in a while. So thank you guys. Smash that like button if you guys get a chance. Leave a comment. Let me know how you feel tonight went. And let's start putting these names into the wheel of names here. So we got, we're going to start with Gerbs and Ray. All right. And also, I want to show you, like, these are my 4 rods that I was using today. So I did throw a deep diving and a medium diving crankbait, and I did throw a jerk bait today as well. But what I basically ended up throwing the most of, or pretty much predominantly, was the jig here. I did not make any casts today or yesterday, or sorry, today or the last trip. I didn't make any casts with my spinning gear and my finesse stuff. Right here we have a Nico rig, dark colored worm with a nice size spear point hook. Over here we have a margarita mutilator robo worm spear point with some straight drop shot weights to get down faster, right? These will get snagged more, but they're more finesse. So when the bite's tough, I tend to go with this when they're a little more active or in the rocks and you're getting snagged a lot, I'll use the round drop shot weight, right? So the two ones I use the most is I did see a lot of suspended bass and moving bass at periods. So I was throwing this spinner bait here, double Colorado blade Booyah with a little Kitech trailer, and had a follower, but didn't throw it enough. So that's pretty much what's been on my rod the last 3 trips at McClure. And this one's been switching between a jerk bait, a crankbait, and some other rods. And yes, it's a spinning rod with 15-pound test fluorocarbon. So it's got some real backbone as far as the line. It's heavy duty. The reel is heavy duty, and the rod is pretty heavy duty for a spinning rod. As far as it's like a medium heavy rod, and the reel series can hold some heavier line. So I can cast far. I get big fish. I have the drag that I need. And this rod right here is really held up. It's a cheap Walmart rod, Speed Stick Lose. So it's works pretty good. Yeah, that's a medium heavy, but it's like a very soft power though. So let's get some more in here. So we got Gerbs and Ray. Let's get Brian and Kay. Oh, my knee. Oh. All right. Mark Nev, what's up, man, guy? You guys, we smashed it in McClure. We had fun, dude. Oh, yeah. Hey, Mike, nice to see you guys on. So if I wasn't answering or talking, sorry. I just wanted to go through my little, thing, so I didn't get all scatterbrained and go down the rabbit holes like usual. So, guys, I like to interact. All right, let's put everybody in. Me and Mark went out there too. We caught them. It took us a minute to kind of get on them, but we got on them. We did pretty good. I think me and Mark got a video that should be coming out. It's pretty good. We did good. I think me and Mark were the first ones that went out there. No, me and Tim went out there. Then me and Mark went out there. Then me and Jay went out there. And then me and Jay went back out there. So I've been to McClure 4 times in like the last 7, 8 days. And been having a good time. All right, let's get everybody in here. So we got K. Lucas. Hey, Lucas. Nice to see you on. I love seeing your posts, man, from the corner right there with your little dog on Facebook. The morning posts. It's like morning coffee. It's getting chilly in the morning, though. When those clouds go away, man, it gets cold at night. Feels good during the daytime when we have that sun, but the cloud cover keeps the overnight temperatures from getting into freezing. When most of the time when you're going to have some really cold weather, it almost always be clear skies. So we got let's put Lucas in there and Mike D, Mike Dozier, Lucas Edwards, and Mike. All right, we got everybody in there. We'll give you guys a couple more minutes. Anybody else in the chat? If you guys want to get in the giveaway, just comment giveaway in the comment section. I'll make sure to put you in the wheel of names. Right now we got Gerbs, Ray, Brian, Kay, Lucas, and Mike. So let me know if you guys want to get in. Otherwise, appreciate you very much. Smash that like button. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Hope you guys enjoyed the content. I am back. So I'm going to have a ton of videos coming out. Like I said, we're going to be back on these live streams, and I'm going to be doing some more tips and tricks on the whiteboard to really try to articulate like what I mean when I'm talking about how I drag and pop and hop and move things, how I feel the bottom, how I like interpret it. How do I know what's wood versus what's rock versus what's dirt, sand, this and that, versus what's grass or potentially some kind of other thing or a fish? How do I, do all that kind of stuff? We'll go through a bunch of cool stuff on those whiteboard videos. I like to show positioning. I like to show the bottom. I like to show boat positioning. I like to kind of break things down like that, just as well as we might do a couple that'll be coupled in with some Google Earths. So I do it the live stream and it works out okay. I do the share the screen, but those can get real laggy. So I guess I don't know. I don't have the highest end processors or anything or servers to really do some cool stuff. But what I can do on my videos though is I can go to any lake anywhere, Google Earth it, zoom in and break the lake down, and then do like video like this and mix it. And then I can also do whiteboard stuff, so I can zoom into a lake, pick a spot, show that spot, and then go to the whiteboard, draw that spot, show how I would break it down, what I would do, and maybe even if it's a place that I fish often, I can even include video of me doing exactly what I'm saying from either previous videos or current videos that I'm working on. So, for example, McClure would be a great one. I could pull McClure up on Google Earth. I can hit a couple of points and a couple of spots, zoom in, show those spots, show how I cast on the spot. Like when I'm floating down the shore, what catches my eye on how I want to fish, what angles, all of that I believe is actually important. It's just really hard to convey in some tips and tricks videos, right? So, how I look at the shoreline and I can tell the contour and like how I read it and can tell in front of me if it travels the same way it is now. Right around here should be a ledge or a drop off. Where there's big boulders coming down here, so I can imagine down there's going to be some, type of thing. And how do I break the spots down? All that cool stuff, right? Then turn around and incorporate like, okay, how I would break this spot down, and then actually show some footage from, let's say, today's trip or whatever, showing me on the actual spot that I hovered in with, Google Maps, break down a point, and then I actually go to that point, recently, before, after, whatever, when I edit the video and just make a really cool tutorial on how to break, let's say, McClure down, or do the same thing with the Delta, with Don Pedro. Cool thing is, I like to hop around, so I want to do all these lakes. You got to really kind of hammer at one for a while to get it dialed in, and then you can do your, boom, and then go to another one, kind of do stuff like that. Plus, also everything changes. So, like whatever we're going over now in a month or two, it might be different, right? So I want to try to keep up to date and make sure that I'm releasing information as quickly as possible, so it's pertinent and up to date. Also, like I said, the members only stuff. What I'm going to start doing is every time I go on a fishing trip, I'm going to post a members only post that could include GPS. It could include photos. It could talk about exactly what spots, what baits, everything. And that will never go out to unmembers. So it'll be basically like a fishing report. So every time I go fishing, members will get a direct fishing report post that'll get posted to YouTube, but only members can see it, and it'll tell them everything, like up to date that day. So as soon as I get home from the lake, I update that and post it, and all the members who are part of the channel get to see real time. Oh, he's using this color, this weight, this size, this point, this depth, this speed. Boom, go get him, be there the next day smacking them, right? So I'm going to try to, and then if you're in another state, how does that help you? Well, you can kind of mimic the stuff. So, okay, if I'm out in California, but you're over here, maybe the weather's not perfect, but you can look and say, well, what was he doing when my weather was like this, right? So say I'm fishing in rainy conditions, the weather's 45 degrees, and lo and behold, you hit a spot where now here comes in some 45-degree rainy weather for you, and what in the bodies of water are similar, you can take some of that information and port it over to your area. Although the United States is huge in different areas, fishing is fishing. And what works on the East Coast is going to work on the West Coast. What works on the West Coast is going to work on the East Coast. Just different times of the year, perhaps, or different days or weeks because of our different weather patterns, right? I went to Florida and destroyed it doing stuff that I would do here at a pond. I just figured, what time of year is it? How's the weather? Okay, well, let's go get some Cincos. A bunch of weeds and junk and alligators in the pond. All right, well, let's throw some top water and some Cincos. Next thing you know, I'm destroying them. Had a ton of fun. So I didn't have my GoPro then. This was like 6, 7 years ago. But I got a lot of photos. You know, me hugging the "Do not feed the alligator" sign, standing right next to the water. You know, fishing, catching them, catching a bunch of like 3 to 4 pound bass. It was a blast. But so hopefully they'll help. That's the stuff that I plan on doing like immediately. That's going to happen immediately starting on my very next fishing trip. I'm going to start uploading posts that'll be detailed and members only. So big thank you to the members who have stuck around. So I know everybody, I appreciate everybody, the subscribers, the viewers, the members, even the people that maybe watch and they don't comment, they're not subscribed, they just hang out and watch every once in a while. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you very much. Without further ado, let me shut the hell up and let's do this giveaway. So let's make sure we got hook sets are free. Cody Conway Fishing. Let's put you in there. Okay. Let's make sure I don't forget nobody. Oh, I feel bad. Bijan. And is the bottom parking lot open at Pedro? No, I don't think so. The water level is at a point where it's low, but it's not, you can't park down there. So you have to go up to the top. Last time I seen it, I drove by it today. I've been at McClure the last couple days, so let's put Bijan in there. Get the man. All right, so we've got Gerbs, Ray, Brian, Kay, Lucas, Mike, Cody. Hook sets are free, and Bijan. If I missed you, please speak now or forever hold your peace. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and we're about to get off for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and do this giveaway. Say sayonara and good night to you guys, and I'll be back on most likely Wednesday. And this is not the November giveaway. This is just my first night back doing a little giveaway for you guys. But the November giveaway will be coming up probably next week. I was going to do it this week, but I got a week behind basically. So I want to make sure I get something good. And we're about to hit 2,000 subs, so I've been having a nice giveaway plan for that. So we'll probably have 2 hit like in one time. So the way that we're growing right now, in the next month between now and December, we should be able to do that. So I'm going to do probably a combo, like a bait caster or a spinning rod or something like that. So make sure you guys tune in for that. But without further ado, appreciate everybody. Let's spin this booger. Let me get my phone out so we can record it. So you guys know that I'm not cheating or nothing. All right. Yeah, I think I want to go to Pedro for a while next, or New Maloney's probably based on the price. So let's record this here first. Show everybody the names. Back out. A little click of the dooter. Boom. I don't know if you've ever won before. Congratulations. I'm not quite sure. I know most of my players that have won. I'm not sure if you've got one yet, though. But congratulations. We'll show you guys here. Click the dooter. Boom. There we go. I don't know if you've ever won before. So congratulations, Cody Conway. You'll be getting a Bass Pro Shop gift card. Harry Medeiros, his is right here. I'm going to be sending that out tomorrow. I already got his address, so he's good. So Cody Conway, if you want to get a hold of me, Samuel Matthews on Facebook, Sambo209 on Instagram. I think I'm like Samuel Matthews 81 or Samuel Matthews 209 on Twitter, if you guys are interested in following me there as well. So just get a hold of me and make sure you get me your address or something so I can mail that to you. Unless you want to meet in person, I'd be glad to give it to you in person as well. So thank you everybody for watching. I hope you guys have a blessed week. I hope you guys have an awesome, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Thanksgiving. Hopefully, we're going to see each other before then. But for anybody I may not, just wanted to say that. And I hope you guys, again, just have a wonderful week. Tight lines if you get out there and do some fishing. And I will be seeing you guys soon with another live stream and a ton of content. So thanks again. You guys have a great night and congratulations. Oh, yeah, good to see you, Lucas. You have a good one. I appreciate everybody watching. You are all awesome. Thank you.